Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel, Lockdown Literary Club, though I might be posting this on Instagram, so let's see how this goes. Happy Valentine's Day. I'm recording it on Valentine's Day. I hope to edit it today and post it today, so I've set myself a slightly improbable task. You guys wanted recommendations for romance books, so let's get right into that. This is unlike a TBR list, where I don't know anything about the book, and unlike a short review where I tell you the themes of the book or what I liked about it. Here I'm just gonna set up the book for you and break them down into different like subgenres in romance. Okay, let's start with teen romance. In the teenage romance category, we have these three books. Because it's Valentine's Day, we're going for more sappy and over the top and not realistic romances, because that's not what Valentine's Day is about. We should have a day to celebrate more realistic love, but that doesn't exist so far. So let's do over the top. These three are my teenage recommendations. The first one is Always and Forever, Lara Jean by Jenny Han. This is a movie on Netflix. The third one just came out 2 days ago. I don't know if the movie's better or the book's better. I know the second movie in this trilogy is not that great, but I think the first movie and the third movie are pretty strong teenage romances. I think they did well. And the book too is really good. All the characters are well-rounded. Everyone seems to have like an actual personality. Lara Jean's sisters seem like well-rounded people with like real issues. And it was a good book. It did a good job of like capturing what high school is like for some people, not everyone. I had a good, happy high school experience, so this was relatable to me, but maybe if you didn't have that experience, it might not be relatable to you, so I don't know. I related to it. I really liked it. Check out the movie, check out the book. They're both really, really good. Second one is Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. This book was published in 2020. This author has another book that came out in Jan, which I haven't gotten around to yet. The reason I liked this book and I would recommend it is because it really got what teenagers talk like down well. The whole entire movie, they're on like social media platforms and communicating with each other while handling high school. And I thought it did the teen speak right. And both Pepper and Jack, the main protagonists of the book, are fun people. They seem funny and entertaining and nice and overachieving, and it's set in New York, and somehow any book that's set in New York is already very like hip or considered hip because the locality is good, all the places they go to are iconic, and I think it already gives you street cred when you live in New York and grow up as a teenager in New York. Gossip Girl, Sex and the City, you name it. My final recommendation for teen books is Avalon High by Meg Cabot. I used to read a lot of Meg Cabot in school, an insane, unhealthy amount. I've tried to read some of her books recently and I realized I've outgrown her, but that doesn't change that some of these books are really, really, really nostalgic for me. This is my favorite book Meg Cabot ever wrote. It's called Avalon High, and it's a teenage retelling of the King Arthur story from the perspective of Lady of the Lake. I know there's a book and a TV show now. I think it's Cursed, right? The girl from 13 Reasons Why is starring in it. That's also a take on Lady of the Lake from King Arthur mythology. Haven't read Cursed, and I don't know when it was published, but I'm pretty sure Meg Cabot did it first. And this is just a really fun romance. It's set in high school. There's like a mythological aspect to it. I've read it like a zillion times, so it's good. Read it. Check it out. Disney Channel did a movie adaptation of this book. It's really crap. It didn't do it justice. Someone please remake this movie with better cast and better acting and better script. Another really popular romance writer is Sophie Kinsella. She's published a lot of books. Her most popular book might be Confessions of a Shopaholic. This book was also made into a movie. Again, the movie's crap. My favorite books by her are Can You Keep a Secret and Undomestic Goddess. I picked this book over Undomestic Goddess is because this has a lot of the popular tropes. So the premise of this book is there's our down-on-her-luck female protagonist who's struggling with her job and has a really ungrateful family that overlooks her. And then she's flying somewhere in Ireland, Glasgow to Dublin. The plane experiences turbulence and she's panicking and she ends up spilling all her secrets to the handsome stranger who's sitting right next to her. She survives the plane, of course, because otherwise there would be no book. And the guy who she spills her secrets to turns out to be the CEO of the company she works for, and like a really big shot. The company is called Panther, and it's basically a stand-in for Pepsi or Coca-Cola. So he's filthy rich. And he's sweet and he's tortured, there's trauma on his part, he's mysterious and all of this, and It unfolds slowly. This is like Christian Grey falling in love with Anastasia Steele. Kind of unrealistic. But she's a lot more likable and relatable than Anastasia Steele and has more of a personality than Anastasia Steele. Yes, minus the bondage and the submissive dynamic. That it doesn't have that, but those books are written very poorly. It's a little better written. Sophie Kinsella is not like the greatest of like romance writers, but she does solid commercial books. Check it out. I've done a review for this book recently, Beach Read. I talked about how it deals with trauma and all in the review. The reason I'm recommending it as a romance book is because this has a really interesting gimmick. So each romance usually has like a meet cute or a trope or a gimmick that makes the book work. Otherwise, it's just like boy meets girl, there's some problems and they fall in love. So you have to insert a lot of contrived situations. So in this one, they're both really popular writers. She's a romance writer. He's like the prestigious, serious fiction writer who usually gets all the accolades and the praise because, you know, they write dark stuff and about life in a dark manner. Well, usually romance writers are looked down upon because it's like anyone can write romance. Not really. It's hard to write a good romance. Anyways, that's the point of the book too. So what they do is they're both trying to work on a new novel. They become next door neighbors in the small quaint town and they challenge each other to write a book in the other person's genre. So she has to write a serious fiction book and he has to write a romance book. And they both take each other on like little excursions to stimulate the research process. It's making fun of both genres at the same time because she ends up taking him to community fairs and like dancing. Somehow people in romance books seem to go to more balls and country dancing than most people ever will in their life. And he ends up taking her to like cults and suicide pacts and all of that. So it's making fun of the genres at the same time. It is a really enjoyable romance. So check out Beach Read. So diversity and inclusivity are some things we should consider in books. I would recommend you read Eleanor Park, which also falls in the teenage category, but it has like body positivity and diversity woven into the story, and that's really good for teenagers. Do check that out. These two both kind of deal with autism and Asperger's syndrome. Though in the Rosie Project, it doesn't acknowledge that the protagonist has Asperger's or autism. It's very strongly implied. The marketing for this book was that it's Sheldon from Big Bang falling in love. I think that's pretty accurate because that's the most popular representation we have of this really high-strung, organized, neurotic genius. Does it rival Amy and Sheldon's love story in Big Bang? It kind of does. I think it took a lot of seasons of Big Bang Theory for Sheldon to like get around to like get into a romantic relationship. This guy is a little more forthcoming and involved in the process, so there's more agency, like he's choosing to do these things. If you really like Sheldon or Big Bang Theory, you'd write this book. This is like Sheldon falling in love with Penny, actually. Just like Penny, the main female protagonist, Rosie, has a lot of manic pixie dream girl qualities to her. But at least she's not just there to support our main protagonist on his journey. She has problems too, which helps. More well-rounded personality, thank you. Another book that deals with autism is the Kiss Quotient by Helen Hong, where our female protagonist, Stella, has autism and has struggled with romantic relationships her whole life. This is basically Autism Meets Pretty Woman, the Julia Roberts movie, where she, to learn about love and how to have better sex, she hires a male escort and they kind of end up falling in love. Sorry, is that spoilers? This is the romance genre. There's no spoilers in falling in love. The guy is very dreamy. He's Vietnamese. She compares his looks to like Daniel Henney from Seducing Mr. Perfect, the Korean American. Pretty sure he's Korean American. He's hot. He's really hot. So if he's supposed to be that attractive and he's very dreamy, very sweet, cares about his family, all good qualities. She slightly fetishizes like Asian people in the sense that the female protagonist, Stella Lane, is white. And she's obsessed with like Korean movies and Asian culture even before she meets the guy. So I don't know. I want someone else's take on this, but for the most part, it's really cute. And I think it does a better job of dealing with autism than this book does, because it doesn't at any point imply that change is something that they can control, you know, because this guy ends up like changing himself willingly. It's just like a mindset thing for him. It's like, I'm going to be fun now, and he decides to be less controlling and fun. I don't think that's how it works for autism. So she has certain limitations and boundaries and is very respectful of that. And it's a really cute romance. It's also very, very steamy because she's learning how to have sex. So there's a lot of that involved. But it's good. There's more to it than steamy sex. Okay. Let's do sad books before we get into like really fantasy, wish fulfillment books. Okay. These three are some of my favorite books of all time. And all of them are kind of sad. I don't know what that says about me. It's fine. One Day by David Nicholls. I read this in high school. I haven't reread it recently. I should. I really liked it then. The premise of the book is that there's two friends, Dex and Emma, who become close towards the end of college, and this book revisits them on the same day every year. So you don't find out everything that's happening in their life. So every year you visit their lives on the 15th of July, where they're at. And some of them, they're still hanging out. Some of them, they're not really talking to each other. And I think it happens over a 20-year odd period. And it's a very slow burn. It's a lot of friendship building and misunderstandings, and they're with the wrong people for a while, even though you know they should be together. Also, like, they change over the course of the books. She becomes a writer over the course of the book, realizing that's what she wants to do, but she does a lot of crappy jobs for that. He comes from money, and he's very superficial. He suffers a lot and learns a lot of lessons. So it happens over the course of their lives, and I think it's a little more realistic portrayal of love and friendship and how sometimes it takes a long time for a romance to get going. So it's good. The only warning I'll give you is it's pretty sad. But if you want to cry, read this one. This book is also a movie. The movie is okay. I'm not the biggest fan of Anne Hathaway's performance in that, but if you want to take a shortcut and watch the movie instead, you can. This gets more in detail. There's actually a love letter in here that's super beautiful that the movie doesn't have, so read it. Next, I've talked about this book to no end. This is Call Me By Your Name by Aciman. Also a movie, a really, really good movie. The movie that made Timothée Chalamet what he is today. So, like, if you are obsessed with Timothée Chalamet, do watch the movie and definitely read this book. This is told from the perspective of Elio, our main protagonist, and he's a teenager who's really smart because he's very introverted and shy, and that comes out as cocky. He's still figuring out what love is, what his interests are, and his sexuality too. It's never clear where his sexuality lies because he likes women and men. I think he's bisexual or maybe something else. We don't know. The book doesn't try to clarify because it says he's in this very formative years in his life where he's just discovering all of it. And I think it's a really good exploration of like what can be, because it happens over one summer in Italy. Like it's like they're living in a bubble, and there's a lot more room for him to explore who he is, and his sexuality and love. And I wish everyone has this kind of opportunity to explore love in this way. Just please read this book. I cannot recommend it enough. It's really good. Normal People by Sally Rooney. I have already recommended this book. Actually, the TV show is really good. So if you're too lazy to read the book, definitely watch the TV show. I really like the TV show. The book is also good. I think I like friendship to love books. That might be my thing. This is also a friendship to love kind of book where it's the whole book is just like will they, won't they. It's a very complicated relationship over the span of 4 or 5 years. They keep going back and forth, dating the wrong people, making mistakes, and growing as people as all of this is happening. And it has a lot of commentary on class, popularity, abuse, mental illness. So it's really good. My last 2 books are complete wish fulfillment and fantasy. These books are borderline fairy tales because it's never gonna happen, but it's nice to read about them, which is the basic purpose of this genre. It's like very unrealistic, over the top ideas and gestures and situations. So first one is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Here the prince of the British throne falls in love with the first son of the American president. Does it work? It's really fun. Henry is like the quiet, brooding, sexy, mysterious prince, and Alex is very mouthy and sarcastic and very smart, and it does work. Their romance is cute, their back and forth is cute. I mean, there's a lot of obstacles in their way because they have to deal with the geopolitical situation of them getting together, or also coming out as gay because both are really public figures. And they're really enjoyable read and very dreamy. It has a lot of relevant pop culture references. Like, I think this book might not age well because 10 years from now, most people will be like, who are these people that you're talking about? So it's very like in the moment right now pop culture references. This would be a great movie. because the movie's very fairy tale-esque. The last one is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This actually you should read the series and not the first book itself, because the first book itself is not that great of a romance. It's another popular trope. This is Beauty and the Beast adaptation. The second book is more Vampire Diaries, season 2, 3, and 4. So I really liked the second book. It's a trilogy, read the entire trilogy. And there's more books in the universe you can read if you want to read. So there's a character in this book who's introduced in this book who gets to shine in the second book, who's very much Damon Salvatore from Vampire Diaries. So if you like Damon and the whole Damon, Elena, and Stefan dynamic, read this book. It comes under the fantasy young adult genre, but the world is not very clearly explained. I think it functions more as a romance book than as a fantasy, like female heroine book. It's a romance. Read the second book. Also a lot of steamy sex in all the books. So yeah, that's it. Those are my romance recommendations. I have a lot more romance books that I read. I'm not recommending like Twilight or Bridgerton or 50 Shades of Grey because you've already all watched it. So what's the point? Thank you for watching my video. If this is on YouTube, do subscribe. If you have any romance book recommendations for me, do drop it in your comments. Ciao. Okay. Adios. Bye.